Learned from the lesson. Live in the hills, but I still get a spread. Started with a little, but I still reinvested. Fear how I feel, then you feel like a blessing. I just want the lesson, I just want protection. I'm up and I'm down, but the sound like progression. Farmer never plans if he waits for perfection. Finger to the down, hold it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got your watch list coming in to April 13th, 2021, and the stock market is going into earnings mode. And I got 3 stocks that I'm looking at coming into tomorrow, but we had a lot of news today, but the market stayed within a very tight range. The S&P barely closed green, but every other index was just slightly red. And if you watch how we came off really that Friday closing in general, been pretty chilled out and relaxed, and this is where the earnings and earnings effect comes into play. But we are going to be getting some big data tomorrow for inflation. We got to hear from Powell at 60 Minutes, had no effect. Got some stuff from the Fed today as well, and now we're waiting for earnings. So the fact that there's a lot of movement, but a lack of movement at the same time, or at least as size is concerned, this is pointing to earnings, and we're seeing a lot of opportunities set up. So I hope you're ready, but we got a lot to talk about. I want to go over what happened in the market today, what we're looking at tomorrow, the plays that we made today. We made a few, and the plays that we're looking at tomorrow, and I'm looking at a couple more. So let us not delay. You guys know what you need to do. Drop your thumbs up on the video. Make sure you're subscribed, and if you don't know, we are live Monday through Friday, 30 minutes before open. It's the first link in the description, and it is pinned in the comments. We better see you there in the morning. It's free 99. It costs you nothing to join. YouTube.com/the-stock-market. You can post the plays, see the plays, watch the watch list come to life, and yes, if you made a lot of money or a little bit amount of money and you're worried about trading and taxes and want to know where to get the tax person, then we are not the place to be. You need to consult with the tax professional, and I think that's really important for some of y'all. So like, that's like a joke, but it's like serious, like act like please, like serious. And the most important thing you need to do, post your watch below. Let us know what you're looking at. Got any plays, comments, remixes, anything, post them below and source that info. Shout out to chat, baby. So right off the bat today, you saw a bunch of those mini earnings waves, or those waves that we were talking about yesterday. The market's not going to do much, and then all of a sudden it will react. Tomorrow will be interesting, because if tomorrow is a more muted effect, then you will see a wave come in Wednesday after some of these companies report. But pretty much market makes a big move leading into earnings, chills out a little bit, and then the follow-up or continuation happens, and then that same cycle or wave repeats coming into the bigger and bigger earnings. And then depending on how they report, if it's big or not, or if it was an important earnings. Now today you could kind of see that. You even saw that a little bit Friday chilled out. It was pretty bullish, then all of a sudden it shot up, and that's what made today so interesting, because we really just carried off. It was a small gap down, but most of how we traded today was still reacting to this end of the market little wave leading into earnings, which got people kind of excited for this week. So we stayed within that range, and then the market didn't do anything, and then European closed. You saw the pop, then the Fed came in, you saw the drop, and then things started going up, and then there was a couple of other headlines that we'll talk about. But you're seeing the market hold a range, and depending on whether the events or the market itself, you're getting mini waves. But wait until the market reports. Once the market gets data or info, it's going to turn into a game of red light, green light. That's what I mean, where it's like, okay, market can react, green light up until it hits something else, and then it's like, wait, red light, wait until the next earnings, wait until the next season, next company, whatever, and then the green light will begin again, or red light, say, go down. I don't know. But you definitely saw these waves today, and the key to watch, and one thing I'm seeing, is that the premiums are still telling the story, and regardless of some of these moves, you're seeing it with specific companies. If they're actually holding up, or if the market is really preparing for their earnings, those premiums aren't moving too much. So even if you saw Nvidia and Intel in that Nvidia news dump today, there was a lot of news, and I said I didn't want it, but I said you could have still played some of the plays with time, because the premiums weren't moving too much until they get into that earnings zone, or there was pretty much a lot already priced in, and this goes for all stocks, not just Nvidia. So paying attention to option premium will be very, very key here, especially as we move through the week, and just pretty much wait for some green light set of news or one of these companies to report, and just watch for a broader market move. Because even though the market moves small today, you are seeing that broader market, or even just widening of the market happen, but everything is moving in tandem. A lot of people are saying it looks like everything's rotating back. No, it's not a rotation. If the Dow is still up and the S&P is still up, you are just seeing some of the tech stocks catch up, and that is the big difference. And if everything all goes up at the same time, that is what makes the broader market move. So that is going to be the key coming into tomorrow. Like I said, you're going to get the bank earnings. We're going to get everything from Wells Fargo to JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, but then you're also going to get the CPI. But like I said yesterday, the market is already expecting that to be big. A lot of people are talking about it and they're hyping it up, but the estimates alone are already very, very hyped. So if it beats estimates, sure, that'll be one thing. But overall, I think the further implications of what this earnings from the banks and then leading into the companies next week and so forth, I think that is going to have a bigger effect on the market in general. And shout out to the Colt Baby. If you're interested in the earnings, Jesus Moreno and a lot of others, and thank you to everybody who's posted below. That's how we source the info. This is the schedule, but also pay attention to the companies coming into next week, because depending on how that sets up, and as we get into these earnings waves, a lot of big companies aren't this week, but you're going to see the start of them next week, and then the earnings in the week after that. Jesus put in some work here, so I really like this. But again, Wednesday is when you're going to see everything kick off. Most of them are going to be pre-market, so tomorrow is going to be your last day to set up, and then also Thursday morning, and then Friday it's going to fizzle out, but all banks, and then you're going to start seeing some bigger companies next week. So depending on how we set up into Wednesday, we're probably going to start looking ahead for 420 yeah, and go from there, and we'll see what happens. So those are going to be the main keys. As far as everything else, like I brought up when I showed you the chart, there was a couple of interesting headlines today, and I think given the market being in earnings mode, it's not going to react as much, or it's kind of muted. You heard Fed Bullard, but you also had Mr. Powell yesterday, so it didn't seem like much. But one thing he did bring up was a vaccination rate, and what he said was essentially if they get to 75% vaccination percentage in the United States, then they might begin talking about raising rates or tapering things off. So that was interesting. Some people think it had an effect at the market, and then even then at close, you got Russia and Ukraine headlines. I brought this up the last few weeks. This is an interesting situation, but essentially Russia is sending a bunch of troops at the Ukrainian border. This is very reminiscent of what 2014 and 2015 led into. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes on this, and you guys watch the currency. If you haven't watched the video we post this weekend, a lot of you guys liked it, so go take a look at it. Has to do with some of these global economic plays, but that's one thing I will be watching nonetheless. It is looking like the market is in earnings mode, and that is going to be the main thing. So I hope you know that, and I hope you're ready, but that is pretty much it. So let us get into the plays. So right off the bat, I got 3 different plays that I want to go over today, and we did make a move on the Nvidia, kind of. I like that play, but the first play that I really like, just because we're going to be getting that IPO this week, it's going to be Overstock. So we've been talking about this logic in general. I am relating this to Coinbase, but I did decide to buy more shares at close. I grabbed 100 shares at like 72.39. I did say if it fell below 70, we'll see, and I pretty much bought this to see how it's going to play out in the morning. I'm either expecting it's going to gap up and confirm, kind of like it did today. It was up another 4 or 5%, and then it came back down. There was a little bit of the market widening going on, but I want to see how that plays out. Depending on what I see, I might actually buy some more tomorrow, but we're going to see. Either way, I do have a lot of exposure to it now, but I like the general idea. I'm relating it to the Coinbase IPO, and I will play the Coinbase IPO. A lot of you guys have asked. Again, we are looking for our criteria, so it depends on how many shares they're offering, how fast it trades those shares, and then the premium at which those shares are at. So we will trade that live on Wednesday. That is going to be the IPO day. Hopefully we see you there, but that is going to be a key to watch. But regardless, I like this Overstock play because it's still giving me exposure to that IPO, so we'll see how that plays out. And for reference, so you can see it here are those 100 shares. Again, 100 at 72.39, but don't forget we had that leap that actually came down a little bit. Now that we have the shares, it's going to show a different percentage, but on that leap, it closed up 14%. But remember, we also added it to the long term, so I grabbed those 100 shares as just more exposure on the swing account, but you can see we're up 10% since buying the shares the first time. So the leap has actually outpaced by about 4% or 50% of the gain now at this point. So overall, still love the play, still waiting for the Coinbase IPO. We'll see how that one plays out, but there's that. And now the second play is Doordash, and this was a play that I actually made, and I want to watch this, but I think you guys will appreciate the logic here. It was a strong winner regardless the last few days. Even if you look at it this morning, as the market was kind of doing its thing and going back and forth, you just saw them hold up, and you remember how they played out on Friday. Was a really big gain. They still ended up closing good, and you can see here they closed up 5%, but why I liked it and why I didn't like it is because I was pretty much able to get a weekly for the same price to cover this whole week as one of those plays that we saw as a big winner on Friday. So I don't know if you guys remember when I started going over all of it, but I was going over the weeklies on Friday. If you saw Doordash, it was a crazy move, and really I was trying to compare, okay, would I have bought in any of these weeklies on the morning of? Some of them were like 30, 40 bucks. to be like $20 out the money. This one's about $40, maybe $30 out the money. So I figured, hey, this one's actually not too bad. So I might as well go with it. And then that was pretty much the first play that I made this morning. I grabbed a Dash April 16th 180 call at 30. I tried to get the 175s. I wouldn't get filled, but I said, hey, we'll keep it small, $30. It shot up. It came back down and just holding right below break even, same price at the ask. But essentially, this was the same price as a daily on Friday. And that's why I'm saying if you even compare it, at the morning at like 30 cents, this wasn't really at too big of a premium. It was just playing it off of Friday's hype, and it was already gapped up and showing strength in the morning. So I said, might as well take it. I would have much preferred time with earnings, but those options were really expensive. So I said $30 gives me a small little YOLO play. Has some upside, would be better spending $30 on a Monday than trying to play $30 on a Friday, but we will see what happens and where that plays out. So that was the second play. And then finally down to the third play. This is what a lot of you guys saw. We called it out really big, but it was Intel. I grabbed the puts, but the real piece of news was on Nvidia. They had a news dump and probably dumped like 3 to 4 months of news all in one day. They had an event. They said what they're going to be working on, and pretty much why Intel started to drop was that they are going to start impeding in on that Intel market share. That's kind of what AMD did. They said they're going to be starting to do this and that. They announced like 4 or 5 different partnerships. They said that they're getting into the auto industry, that Nvidia now has a supercomputer thing they're working on, and I probably think 2 other pieces of news that I'm just totally missing. It was a lot, but it affected all of the chip makers, so I would watch that for any continuation moving forward. And if you watched on stream, I would even recommend you go back so you could kind of see how I discussed it, because I was even saying, even after this pop, there was a play, and you would have been able to play it. I said I just didn't want it, and why I decided to go with Intel, because we caught it pretty early, and the idea was just kind of going for the double whammy with Intel and their earnings, and the fact that it was actually still holding up, and the fact that it's made such a big run up, grabbing a put at the very top that would cover earnings. That logic seemed a little bit more appropriate to me than trying to assume it was going to go up like this, and the Nvidia options just were not cheap. So as far as the Intel play, what I ended up doing was grabbing the May 21st 57.5 puts, 2 of them at 45 cents, but you can see here we executed at 12.21 on that play, so that's at within 2 or 3 minutes of that first candle on the drop. So we got it early. Those plays were just about under 100% at close, but now bringing that up to Nvidia, you could have saw it here too, is the same exact timing that we would have made a lot more at 12.21. You actually had a way smaller move on Nvidia, and that's what I was saying the whole way. I was like, there's a play here. I said, especially if you get time. I just didn't want to spend that much money, so congrats if you did. But AMD also dropped. Intel, Qualcomm started moving. Qualcomm even got downgraded today, but the idea here is this will cover in the earnings. I now got to play this effect, and I may even look at Nvidia tomorrow. We'll see how it plays out, but at the very least, I could use this play to set up for earnings on Intel. We had one of those calls that was expiring this week on Intel, but that's going to get clapped, so I may go for the put side, but we'll see. At least we had a reason to grab a put on the top, and I really like that, so definitely keep your eye out for that one. But as far as everything else, those are going to be the main plays. Watch Microsoft. I still really like it, and this is what I'm saying. The premiums are telling the story, even if it would drop or not. It did slightly go red for a little bit. They are holding up. They announced that Nuance buyout today. The news came out like 6 different times. Very weird. Be careful. Do not buy any options on Nuance. They may look cheap, but if the stock has been bought out, there's no real value that's going to change on that. So it's a trap. Be careful, especially if you're new, but seriously, be careful. Nonetheless, I like Microsoft for earnings. I'm still holding those Mays. Going to hold that for the earnings run up. I don't know if I made that clear. I can make those contracts free, but I still want to push it because they're going to report a little later. We'll see how some of these other companies report this week that could kill the premium, but I'm liking how they're looking so far, and I like the potential, so I'm going to keep my eye out for them. Watch Roblox. They closed at 75, so the fact that they closed at this key level, again, I brought it up yesterday, that volume is increasing. They're at a breakout level. I love it in general. Already did like it, and now I think some of the people who didn't like it here might start liking it here because, well, it's holding up and it's been doing a lot of volume, so I want to see how that plays out. It holds a big range. This one's a fast mover, but overall, just still locked in all of those shares. No options or anything else, but I will keep my eye on them. It has just overall been a fun one, so watch them. Watch Baba. They shot up. They said thank you to Chinese regulators. That is not a joke. They literally said thank you. We explained it a little bit on stream, but this helped ease some of the concerns, so I want to see if this continuation continues, but even more so, what company I'd actually want to look at would be Baidu, because they still kept going down, and I wonder now if there's still somewhat of a dark cloud over them, and we'll just see how this plays out. But I even said this could be a bounce event, and that's exactly what we got here. So we'll see how BABA plays out, but these are big moves, and I think leading into earnings, this will be key. So watch them. Again, Nvidia and Overstock. Overstock I really like. Baidu we just discussed. Even Uber, I really like Uber. They did very, very good today, and they just came out. This is kind of part of the travel play. They said car bookings were starting to go up, and they've noticed the uptick. Their delivery business is up 150%. They got renewed guidance. Even that's what Nvidia came out with too, middle of the day. After all these little news events, they said that they're already beating their earnings expectation from the full year guidance. So you got a lot of these little updates leading into earnings, and that is starting to boost us up, and you will see that during earnings season. So watch out for them. But Uber was a winner. GameStop was a loser, and then it was a weird winner at various times, but it looks like they're looking for a new CEO, and I think some people are disappointed because not only is that just a big shakeup, a lot of people are looking for that Ryan Cohen Chewy dude to take over, so we'll see. But then later in the day, this was an interesting piece of news. This stock started to pop as traders were informed that there was a job search or a job listing by GameStop looking for people with an NFT or blockchain background. So it got a little bit of that hype. We'll see how that one plays out. And if GameStop just pivots to NFT blockchain, I mean, I don't even know at this point. That would be crazy. But watch them. Watch Digital Ally. There's a lot of the lockdowns going on in Minneapolis. A lot of people thought it was COVID related. It was actually riot related. At first, it was related to the ruling on the George Floyd thing, but now there was also another shooting there, and there's been a lot of riots there. So DJLY, that got brought up. I always thought this one was interesting how it played out. I don't know if I'll play it, but it's a lot of hype. But again, any of these cheap companies, we talked about it today, do not buy the options. You're better off buying the shares in swing trading. It's a lot cheaper, $200 of leverage. Why would you really want to pay too much premium? What I mean by $200 of leverage, 100 shares at $2 a pop is $200. So if you buy a contract, it's only representing about $200. That's why that Doordash play was so big, because I still spent $30. It was a weekly, but 100 shares at $180 is $18,000. That's a way better leverage ratio in that sense. So you'll get more safety just buying the share. Why put yourself on a time frame if the stock is cheap? So watch them. Watch AAL. There was news after hours, or you're probably going to hear it here coming into the morning. A lot of the Canadian airlines got some bailouts here, and I believe AAL said they're looking to sell more bonds to do a corporate refinance of some of the higher price debt, but overall, just watch the reopening trade. It was interesting to see how those premiums, I'm still holding them. They're right at break even on those leaps. So watch for them. And just overall travel trade, I really like. I talked about this. I even think it relates even into Uber. I like them. I'm not a big fan of the airlines. I have those leaps. I want to see if there is a boost from the reopening. But other than that, like real good long-term travel plays or even good swings. I like the Airbnb. They were up a little bit. They slipped up today. I like Expedia. It's pretty much just based out here. It looks like it might have a big move for earnings. So that will be key. But companies like that are going to be the ones that I really like, as opposed to just airlines or especially the cruise lines. I think airlines better than cruise lines. And then if I could get a travel booker or somewhere kind of related to the real estate side of travel, hotels, that would probably be the better investment in my opinion. So we'll see. But moving into the glorious TLT, it kind of gave it away today in a weird way. It just didn't do much. Even though the NASDAQ slipped up a little bit more and we couldn't really see what was going to happen, it looks like it would have been scarier here. The range on bonds has been so tight, and you can see it's barely moved. And I think coming into earnings, this is making sense, but overall this is bullish. And now on top of it, the dollar didn't move as well either. So I hope you watched that video on the weekend. Yes, we are watching these factors and they are key, but don't forget there's other stuff, mainly stuff like oil, the other commodities, even Chinese currency, but now even factoring this into the ruble, Russia, Ukraine thing. So we will see here, this is domestically, and like I'm saying, during earnings, we might actually see this calm down. So if there is going to be anything that happens that's going to disrupt the market out of this earnings zone, I'm expecting this to move, but these tighter ranges are going to be good until we actually see a move, or bonds might actually start moving a little bit bullish here, and then we start to see TLT go up, and that means the rates come down. And if that does happen, that would actually be a little bit stronger, assuming the dollar doesn't go crazy off of that. So either way, it's going to be earnings. We have to be watching for that. It's going to start off slow, but before you know it, you might see the market go a little bit crazy, or maybe a market gets shocked. So I hope you're ready. But that is your watch list, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure Hydrate Healthy ready to go. Make sure you post your watch list. Make sure we see you there in the morning. I need the armor on. I need the helmet shining. You don't need a check, baby. You need the wire. But the code loves you. I love you. I'm going to see you in the morning. Let's go.